Historic Landmarks Commission, November 20th, 2024. All right, let's start with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present.
Vice Chair Howes is absent. Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dorden.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Yes, here.
Commissioner McClure is absent. And Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're on to item A, public comment. So any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So, all right, we've got taker. And then if you haven't already, you can fill out, oh, he's got a slip. Great. All right.
Follow the rules. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Ted Taser Myers. I'm the president of Santa Barbara County Genealogical Society. My comment today is about the proposed project at 328 West Montecito Street, our neighbor to the south. This project was on your regular agenda last week. I'm sorry that I missed the meeting, but I have watched the video. While we realize that this project, as proposed, helps the city and the community by creating more student and low-income housing, it has a couple of flaws that we think should need to be addressed. First, we would like the developer to construct an 8-foot block wall between our two properties. The purpose of this wall would be to inhibit tenants, who most probably would be city college students, from throwing refuse over the fence into our garden area. The wall would also inhibit disruptive noise. Mr. St. George previously agreed to this plan with my predecessor, Art Sylvester, who I believe has attended this meeting. Second, as good neighbors and citizens of Santa Barbara, we are concerned that the proposal has no proposed parking plan, even though anywhere from 40 to 70 residents, young adults, would be expected to reside there. If, as one commissioner proposed, a third story be built, we would suggest that the first story be dedicated to parking. And that's my comments for today. Thank you for your consideration. We have submitted written comments to staff last week, and we plan to attend any future hearings on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on something not on this agenda? All right.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I don't have any virtual participants, and I will just state for the record that we did receive written correspondence from Fran, which was acknowledged to the commission prior to the meeting. Back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting November 6th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Under discussion, any edits? Chair Ensberg.
Yes, thank you. The only comment I had or suggestion is on page 5. This is the Montecito project, 828 West Montecito Street, number 17. I would just ask that we include, we spoke about a C-shaped plan with a courtyard. And I believe that we suggested that that courtyard be oriented so that it faced to the south and toward the Montecito Street side.
Try to remember.
Well, I remember
Was that,
saying that.
was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as
I
to,
think
you
that
know,
was the intent,
reduce
although we didn't say it
the,
specifically.
Yeah, that's a good ad.
Yeah, okay. That adds clarity.
was
Okay.
trying to sort of focus it more toward the residential side and away from the more intense circulation side.
Okay, yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
Any other edits? All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Commissioner Dorden.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Abstain.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
And Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, on to item C, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting on November 6th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Butler, thanks. All right. Commissioner Drew, you're a little slow on the draw.
Should we wait?
Pause for applause.
Okay, and edits for our consent meeting minutes. All right, not seeing any. Let's go to, or let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Commissioner Drury,
Abstain?
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvick,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. On to item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar of November 20th, 2024.
Motion to ratify?
Second?
All right, Commissioner Drury, second. All right.
Thank you.
Staff?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Item A was City Lot Number 5, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted with findings. Item B was 813 Anacapa Street, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted with findings. And item C was 1530 Chapala Street, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted with findings. And I believe Chair Grumbine broke Vice Chair House's record in reviewing these items today.
Yes.
11 minutes.
They were very easy items for the record. Vice Chair House, you still have your job. Okay, any discussion or questions about?
Chair Grumbine, just
Yeah.
one clarification, please. The Lubud wines, I was involved in some review of that through the Trust for Historic Preservation. So do I need to recuse myself
Or
from that?
maybe
piece of
abstain for,
it?
just abstain for that item?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then that could be noted in the minutes. Great, thank you. All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvick,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes, with an abstention for item 2.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you all. Okay, we're on to item E, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Staff, do we have?
No announcements from staff at this time.
Mr. Chair, I need to leave by 4:30.
If we are not leaving by 4:30, we have got some serious problems. But thank you. All right,
I have announcements, but I'll make them under designation subcommittee report.
okay.
And Chair
Commissioner
Grumbine, just a question on item 3, the East Cabrillo Boulevard. I was not at that meeting, and I did not have a chance to review the tape. So does that mean that I get to bow out early, or should
No,
I?
you can't leave. You get to stay and ask questions, but you can't have comments or vote. You
Okay.
abstain from that, but you can still ask questions as part of the review.
Okay, well, if that's,
And I think
The desire?
it would be good,
okay,
yeah.
then I will stay for that. Thank you.
Great. Any other announcements, et cetera? All right, we'll close that. On to item F, subcommittee reports.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Under designation subcommittee report, a couple of things. We are going to take up an effort with the city's architectural historian to bring a nomination forward for the various hitching posts around the city. There are hundreds of them, and most of them are in the public right-of-way. So that project is beginning to make its way through the process. Next, a couple of weeks ago, indicated that the California State Historic Resources Board was going to act on 2 nominations. They did on November 7th and approved them for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. The first one is African Americans in California from 1850 to 1974. It's a multiple properties submission document, and what that does is it helps subsequent property owners who wish to get on the National Register that fit within the context of that study, makes it easier for them to do so. The multiple properties document requires at least one property be submitted with the application of the multiple properties document. 2 were submitted. The St. Paul's African American Methodist Church here in Santa Barbara and the Southern Pacific 16th Street Station and Tower were submitted, both of them part of the context study, and both of them as an independent application were both recommended to the registrar for the National Register. So it's just, I think, now a matter of the document being signed by the registrar, and now they're on the National Register. It's interesting to point out because, this wonderful little church, which is the oldest church for the black community, is now, linked to the broader context of importance in the state of California. So I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Thank you for that report, and thanks for all your work and everyone else's that's gone into it. So, awesome. All right, any other subcommittee reports?
Yes, Chair Grumbine, on the interim working group, we had Commissioner McClure and I met last week with Sarah Clark and Tess Harris about our outdoor dining furniture and accessories that we're trying to get completed, and had a really good meeting. We had a Zoom meeting, and we missed you. But
Yes.
it was a really good meeting, and I think we are, moving forward. We got a list of commercial, Tess sent us a list of commercial companies that have outdoor furniture that would be, really durable and meet those kind of requirements. And so there were a number of them, options in there for chairs and tables. So I feel like we're getting it to move forward, and it was a really good meeting, so,
Great.
yep.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for that, and yeah, it was great to see what came out of that afterwards as well, so, thanks. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. Okay, any other subcommittee reports? All right, we are on to item 1. We are just a few minutes early, so I think we're good to go. Okay, so this is an archaeology report for 2503 Medcliff Road. So this project is not a historic site or within a historic district. The 28,000 square foot site is currently developed with a one-story single-unit residence with an attached two-car garage. The project involves 1,500 square foot one-story addition to the residence, removal of the non-native Brazilian pepper tree, and 4 eucalyptus trees to be replaced with 5 western red bud trees, removal of as-built wood decks, and wood fencing. Proposed total of 3,800 square feet on a 28,000 square foot lot is 81% of the maximum guideline floor to area ratio, FAR. Planning Commission review and approval of a coastal development permit is required. Requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 archaeological resources report prepared by Brent Leftwich. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, is there someone here to talk about that? No? All right.
Well, they don't have to be present to win, I guess.
They don't.
I would recommend postponing the item to the end of the hearing, and I'll see if I can figure out where the report preparer is, and then if not, we'll postpone it indefinitely due to the applicant's absence.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to trail this item.
All right. All right, we have a motion second by Commissioner Butler. Do we need a vote? Or
We don't need a vote to
Okay.
postpone it to the.
Okay, well, let's just
later.
postpone it. That sounds good. Okay, do we have the applicant for the second item, or the archaeology report here? Okay, great. And we are within time, so we can jump onto that one. So, come on up. So this is 601 Santa Barbara, formerly 119 East Coda Street. Project is not a historic site or within a historic district. Proposal for a new 3-story, approximately 53-foot tall, approximately 64,000 square foot police station building and associated 37.5-foot foot tall, approximately 84,000 square foot parking structure to accommodate 236 parking spaces at the existing 1.6 acre Coda commuter parking lot. Each structure would also have a subterranean level 8 additional surface parking spaces for visitors would be provided. Existing police operations currently located at 4 separate sites would be consolidated at the new project site. Grading includes 22,000 cubic yards of export. Total of 23 tipu trees and 12 oak trees would be removed. The existing MTD bus stop shelter on Coda Street and plaques commemorating the old Lincoln School would be relocated on site. The project received height exception and development plan approvals by the Planning Commission. This is requesting acceptance of a limited data recovery report prepared by Langen Engineering and Environmental Services, Inc. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and stated that it is adequately presents the results of the archaeological investigation carried out in the abandoned well on the property. All right, welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record. Oh, here, on this.
Yep, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Grumbine and committee members. My name is Brad Hess. I'm the Principal Project Manager for the city, overseeing the police station project. And I'll let them introduce themselves as they speak, but real quick intro before I turn it over to Heather. The phase 1 that was done on this property back in 2019 was part of the site selection for the police station. That's how it started. Heather's going to go into the details of it, but that's how this started. And fast forward to today, is we are hopefully going to break ground in January. So pretty exciting time for the project. The majority of the talking gets to be done by Heather, and I'll introduce her, Heather McDevitt from Langen. So take it away, Heather.
Thank you. And I'll introduce, this is my colleague, Dr. Mark Abermook. He also works for Langen. He oversaw the field work that occurred for this data recovery. I'm the principal investigator that oversaw the investigation from start to finish. I'm also the author and the principal investigator for the study that was the impetus behind this data recovery, so back when I worked for DUDEC. So I'll just kind of lead you up to why we're doing a data recovery. So we did a phase 1. That phase 1 included archival documentation, a record search, and going through various historic maps. And we discovered that there was a potential of a few different resources being present subsurface on the project site. Our next step at that point, because it's fully paved, was to do a ground penetrating radar survey. We did that, and that uncovered 3 anomalies within the project site. And of those anomalies, then our next step was to do a subsurface ground truthing. So we did some subsurface testing, and each one of those anomalous areas returned negative, except for the one which we encountered a historic well. The next step was to determine whether or not that historic well was significant. And we determined that it was, based on the fact that it is the only historic well that was found, that has been found so far in the city of Santa Barbara that's made out of sandstone. The others were either not lined, or they were lined with brick or wood. So this was unique. And then also, you're in an area where it just covers several different sensitivity zones, and so there was a potential of finding artifacts within the well. So when wells are abandoned, they usually are used as a refuse pit. So what we suggested was that there would be done a limited data recovery, and so that's what we started in July. And our main questions were, we wanted to know what the nature of the well was, what was the construction of the well. We wanted to look at the artifacts. What could that tell us about the history of Santa Barbara? And that's the idea behind a data recovery, is when you have a resource that is going to be destroyed, you want to try to retrieve as much data as you can, because you only have that one chance to do that. That information that the resource holds that could enlighten our understanding of history of Santa Barbara will then be lost. And so that was what the data recovery did. So we excavated systematically, and we are limited just to that well area, and we documented all the artifacts that were retrieved, and also the construction of the well. And I think I'll just... And so that did satisfy what it is that we were, trying to accomplish with the data recovery.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, if that concludes your presentation, we'll now go to public comment. So anyone member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this? All right, anyone from,
Thank you, Chair Grunbein. We don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it back to the commission.
all right.
Okay.
Well, what do you guys think?
What'd you find?
Mr. Chair. We'll be fine.
Everybody wants to
What's
know
good stuff? Okay.
We excavated. What did you excavate?
Bottles, playing cards,
You know, I just like to play coy, you know. So we, it was fun. It was, you know, there was a lot of bottles, a lot of glass. The artifacts dated from 1830 to 1930. We do believe that the well was constructed prior to 1870 because we know we had a full water system by 1870. So there's no reason why they, especially in that area, actually, that area happened to be the first area that had public water. So and it's right just maybe a block away from the De La Guerra Springs. So we know that it was more than likely built before 1870. Why they use sandstone, it's not like it's uncommon, it just hasn't been found in Santa Barbara before. And as we know, there's a lot that's used, a lot that's built with sandstone, so it seems, you know, consistent. As far as the bottles go, you know, it's kind of, I'm sure you guys read every single word of this report, right? So, but it's, I don't have it, you know, we write these things and no one but ourselves read them, but that's okay. It's fun.
We read them.
Thank you. So, what's neat is that you try, you know, you may not have very famous people that lived in the area, but it's still important for us to understand the different periods of time and who may have been connected to that. Again, these may be people that their names may never be read again, or mentioned again, but it's interesting. We did find some correlations as far as use. So just some highlights. We found some indigo dye, which is really interesting. There's a picture of it in there. The fact that that survived when it was so damp, we hit the water table, I forget, what did we think it was, like at 3.5 feet or 4 feet?
Well, it was a meter, it was a
Yeah.
meter down, meter and 10 centimeters down.
So the fact that the dye was still intact and dry was pretty interesting. And that, we know that a Paulina Fausto, Tasca and Paulina Fausto actually lived there from 1918 to 1920 on that property, and they were artists. So it makes sense, perhaps that came from them. We had some females, some artifacts that would be more associated with female use, and that would be a purse clasp and a hairpin. We have two ladies that lived there, 1915 to 1919, Mary Gorgie and Mary Brabo, and then, of course, Paulina Fausto, the artist again. We have medicine bottles. Those can be associated perhaps with, we had one of the very first pharmacies in Santa Barbara was just down the road, and he lived there on the property. And so there was medicine bottles, alcohol bottles. There was actually several people who worked for alcohol companies or for stores that sold alcohol and such, and it looks like they brought their work home with them, because we have a lot of alcohol bottles.
They were drinkers, for sure.
Yes.
A lot of tonics, too.
Yeah. So, and then another fun thing, there was a Leatherworks, a Leatherworks shop that was right there on Santa Barbara Street that was within that property area. And we found some leather there. We found some shoe soles there, which doesn't mean that that was part of the Leatherworks, but it could have been. And then we also found some hand-forged nails and other implements that would have definitely been made by a blacksmith. And we do have a blacksmith that lived in that area, right within those homes that were there. So as far as the well, we know that it was covered up by a structure. So there was a structure there before, and then the structure was demolished, and they made a new structure. And so we believe sometime between 1896 and 1904 that well was covered completely.
Great.
So there's pictures in here. We found some fun, thank you.
Yeah.
So we found slate pieces, both likely pencils and then also the actual boards that have been written on. As we all know, this is the location of the Lincoln School. So what we suspect would have happened is that it was abandoned, the well was abandoned, it was used for a refuse pit, it was likely abandoned or covered up sometime in late 1800s, early 1900s. And then when they got ready to put in the new Lincoln School, they went and graded, and that probably ended up why we have some of the school supplies in there. And then one more thing, just to kind of bring it all the way back to to the Spanish colonial period, we actually found some terracotta, quite a few terracotta tiles, flat tiles and roof tiles in there, which could have happened, as we know, when the street grid, Wackenbrüder street grid started actually coming to fruition, and adobes were demolished one by one. Those pieces, would have ended up as refuse, and so we found a decent amount of those as well.
Cool.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
Yes, a couple more questions. What were the dimensions of the well?
The dimensions were, oh boy.
Diameter and depth?
It was one, let me see, I have it here, it's in here somewhere. I don't remember exactly. It's about 4 feet wide. Do you want the exact?
Yeah,
A little over a meter.
If you widen, how deep?
And we don't know how deep it is because we hit the water table and we couldn't go any further. It was filled up with water. Mark can attest because he was right in the middle, all
Yeah.
soggy.
Although based on that, the pipe that went down.
Yeah.
You could probably say,
The
you
water
could probably
table's
say that the whole
high
depth
up
was
there,
probably
down
about,
there.
11 feet-ish?
Or more. It was likely 20. So the well, when we encountered it during the first extended phase 1, it was a good 5.5 feet below the current surface, likely because when the Lincoln School was built and they were grading that area, they chopped off the top of it. So we're,
that
missing a
makes
portion of the
sense.
well. And then we have the pipe that was also cut off, but it was still in there. So they kind of cut it off and then they pushed it down a little bit, and we did recover that, and that's a good 6 feet. So it was probably at least 15 to 20 feet deep.
Do you have an idea what could you describe how the blocks were laid for the wall of the well?
So they were staggered, and then they were, in between the intervals, there was some actual just rough, they weren't hewn. So some
They
blocks
weren't.
were hewn, and some blocks were just, the raw sandstone was used, the lower that we
Very interesting.
got.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
All right, any other questions?
Yes,
Yeah,
Chair
Commissioner
Grumbine,
Ansbridge.
thank you. Thank you for this report. It's very, very interesting and important. Where do all these materials go? All the things that you captured, do they go, where are they kept, and are they put someplace where they could potentially be used for a display to, educate about and to record all this information where people can find your report and also the materials that go with it?
So I know the report will be on file with the city. It will also be submitted to the CRIS, or the California Historic Resources Information System, specifically the Central Coastal Information Center that's at the Museum of Natural History. It'll be on file there. As far as the artifacts go, we have not determined that. They are not significant. They do not necessarily, there wasn't anything that really came up that the artifacts themselves were significant. And so that will be determined. They have been saved, they have been cataloged, and they are organized in a manner that if we want to use them, we can. But they are owned now by the city, so it's up to the city. Sorry, I put you on the spot. It's up to
They're going to do a police fundraiser, they're going to auction them off.
So,
Well, I think it's really interesting that you've got these artifacts and you've associated them with blacksmithing and schools and people who lived around the area.
Yeah.
I think the place across the street, which is the Australian Coffee House, is that?
oh, yeah, the pink
That's a
one.
very old, yeah, it's a very old house as well.
Yeah.
So it's probably coeval with that
Probably.
well. Thank you.
Yeah, and just also to note, a majority of what we pulled out were fragments. They're very small. They took a lot of analysis to actually be able to date them and source them. So, and not everything we were able to identify because it was so fragmented. So there are very few elements that are actually would be something you don't want to display. Yeah, and then there was a lot of metal, and that metal, there's like, the only thing that there's just a couple shears, and we had some nails and screws, but they were so rusted that it just really not worth keeping. And, the other thing to consider is it's always nice to curate. And when I started my career, that was definitely something that we focused on. It was curating artifacts. But now we are overrun in our museums with boxes that nobody ever looks at again. And it's kind of a waste. It also costs money to do perpetual curation. So we have to really think what makes most sense.
I suspect, this is more a comment than a question, because I think we've rambled, the lines are blurred. I suspect it's more important that they're photographed and cataloged and included with the report for
Yes,
the
and they all have
context
it.
of the report,
Right.
than actually keeping the chip that probably doesn't mean a whole lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did take pictures of just about everything that was worth taking a picture of. Not all of those are in the report because it would be too long, but we do have those pictures, yeah.
So in terms of this is an actual question, in terms of dating the well, I suppose because of the water system, you're assuming the earlier date that it could have been constructed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said 1930. So was 1930 based on any Sanborn mapping or something? Because if you lost half of the well, you wouldn't know what artifact was in the
Correct.
part you lost.
Yes, correct. So 1930 was actually the artifacts that we encountered. So the made date of the artifacts were from 1830 to 1930. So yes, you're right, we're missing some of the data because it wasn't there. They had already graded it. So as far as dating the well, it's very difficult to understand. Yeah, because those are not displayed on Sanborn maps. Wells typically are not, because the purpose of a Sanborn map is for insurance
insurance.
purposes. Yeah.
Another question, would you think that this was a well associated to a single house, or could it be a well that was shared among properties that were immediately adjacent?
Fortunately, I can't answer that, but it could be either.
We need a time machine, definitely. All right.
Those are those questions we wish we could answer, but yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments?
If there are none, I'll make a motion to accept the archaeological study for 601 Santa Barbara Street.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Under discussion, any further discussion?
Well, I have a question that
Oh,
I
yeah.
can ask.
Commissioner Lemick.
This well is outside of the building footprint, isn't it?
Yes.
Is the intent to leave the well there or to tear it up and go away?
It is to protect it in place.
Okay.
So once the work was done, it was filled with slurry, so we'll be shoring and protecting it.
Okay.
And actually, that's why we call it a limited data recovery.
I would assume that the basement structure of this new building will be at or below the level of the well, maybe.
Right. It's not going to, it's within that like walkway kind of leading into the lobby, so it's not going to be impacted.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're looking for a glass panel in the basement where you can see the...
Well, I've
So-
encountered those before.
So when we look to mitigate, we have a resource. The city did work to make sure that the design would avoid, because that's what CEQA requires, right? That we avoid a resource if we identify it, if it's feasible. It was feasible to avoid it, and so why did we do a data recovery? We did a data recovery because what we were doing by avoiding it, we were doing something we call archaeological capping, covering the resource so that it's not impacted. So we weren't actually excavating the well itself, but the limited data recovery was done to extract the artifacts that we would not otherwise be able to do once the police station was there.
Gotcha. All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Great report. Yeah. All right.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, if we could reopen item 1. The report preparer is not going to attend and the case planner is stuck in a meeting, so I'm going to attempt to present the item for them.
Wonderful.
If you feel like you need more information from the report preparer before approving the report, you can continue it, but we do ask that you approve the report today. So I will read my text notes from the case planner.
All right, so I'll reopen.
Yes.
Item number 1 for 2503 Medcliff Road, and if you want to hear the description, just rewind back to the beginning of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the project description states, it's not in a historic site or within a historic district, so the project will not come to HLC. And as you know, the report is confidential, so it is not being shown publicly, but you should have all been able to review it on your members-only page. Staff is asking that the report be accepted as submitted. No materials were observed during the archaeological investigation, and standard conditions are all that were suggested by the archaeologist, and Dr. Glasshow reviewed and agreed with the report and its conclusions. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. It sounds very similar to the last archaeological report we just reviewed, except for everything.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions. I think it's an excellent report, and I'm happy to make a motion.
Oh, wait 1 sec. We just go to public comment real quick, and then we'll come back
All
to
right.
you. All right, so to public comment, anyone in the room wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, how about?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive written correspondence, so back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, now to you, Commissioner Uli.
I don't have any questions. I'm happy to make a motion, but I'll pause if others have questions.
Anyone else not? Okay. All sounds good to me.
I'll move acceptance of the archaeological report for 2503 Medcliff Road.
Second.
All right, the motion and second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion, any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes,
I'll just say that this is a case where I find Dr. Glasshow's recommendation to be persuasive.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenbeck,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and now we are on to our last item. So if this takes us past 4:30, Commissioner
We're
Drury.
going to drag it out. Read it really slow.
Yes. Okay, so we are on to item 3, 1111 East Cabrillo Boulevard. This is for continued item for project design approval and final approval. This is located in EPV and adjacent to the Vista Mar Monte, a designated structure of merit. This building is not a historic resource. Proposal to construct a new cupola painted to match the existing building to screen a new telecommunication facility. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. Project was last reviewed on October 9th, 2024. All right, welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Pleasure to see you guys again.
Yeah. So if you would introduce yourself for the record, and then we'll have
Sure.
staff, and then we'll also look at the comments from last time.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Lee. I'm from the Triad Group on behalf of Dish Wireless.
All right, thank you. To staff.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Similar to my announcement from the previous hearing, it's just a reminder that the telecommunication facilities are subject to 90-day timelines. Today is the last opportunity for the HLC to review the project within that 90-day timeline. So you will have to either approve the project, approve it with conditions, or deny it at today's hearing unless the applicant agrees to an adjusted timeline. And with that, we can go to the minutes from the previous hearing.
All right, great. Okay, so the motion was to continue 4 weeks with the comments. 1, the commission thanks the applicant for coming before HLC and providing 3-dimensional simulations. 2, the change the roof material to match the existing clay tile roof and pitch. 2, change the roof material to match the existing clay tile roof and pitch. 3, change the window opening in the tower to be plaster grill instead. Study and return with examples of historic grills around Santa Barbara. 4, restudy the middle and top band molding to be more traditional and historic. 5, widen the plaster on the corners of the tower. 6, return with street elevations, including the AT&T building and streetscape. 7, study shifting the tower so that it is off-center and preferably up to 1/3 or 2/3. All right, this motion was by House, the second was by Butler. 7-0-0, Ensberg and Uli were absent, the motion carried.
And yes, I did.
You did watch the thing, okay, so you will be able to ask questions and vote. And then Commissioner Ensberg had mentioned that she had not watched the video yet, so she can ask questions. Okay, then abstain. All right, so with that, if you would walk us through your presentation?
Sure. So this is the title page. We'll go ahead and skip through that and get to the heart of the presentation. So one of the comments that we were first addressed was relocating the tower to a first third. And this is an example of what the current rooftop looks like now. I believe we initially had proposed it to be kind of plopped right here in the middle, and we moved it over to the first third of the building. Details of the actual tower itself. So the first thing that we wanted to do was get rid of the decorative roof, which nobody seemed to like here on the first run. So we went back and replaced it with the Spanish tile. There was mention of some of the decor at the top of the tower, which we've now added, and we also added inlets to it to add some more depth. I don't have the measurement here now, but there's a substantial more space between this last inlet and the edge of the roof. And then if we go down to the elevations, this is kind of what it looks like here, but the elevation that you guys really want to see is this last one here. So this kind of gives you an example of where the existing AT&T facility is currently and where ours is going to be proposed here. And I feel like we did our very best to address all the comments from the previous hearing. And photo simulations that we brought with us, here's kind of what we're looking at from street level. This is further down the block. It's over here on this corner here. And here it is from a behind the view angle. So this is where the AT&T building is here, or the facility, and this is where ours is going to be proposed. And that's kind of all I have. I hope that we addressed all the comments from the previous time.
All right. So if that completes your presentation, we'll go to public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to comment on this? All right. On to virtual.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We do not have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so back to you.
All right. All right, to the commission for questions. Have any questions?
I have a question of staff. The description that's in the agenda indicates that Vista Maramonte is a designated structure of merit, and then quickly followed by, it's not a historic resource.
Yes, thank you for that question, Commissioner Uli. So the adjacent building, the parcel has two buildings. This structure is not proposed on the historic building. So the adjacent building on the parcel is the Vista Marmont, which is a designated structure of merit, but this building is not a historic resource.
So I would suggest that the project description ought to be clearer to say that, because it's confusing.
Noted.
All right, other questions? So I have a question about, so your section cut here, the detail 2 section cut showing, the one you were just on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, see how at the partway up the tower detail, you have a detail 2 right there. Yep, or is that section cut right going across right there, going across that pattern? I'm trying to look for the depth of the wall of the.
Oh, how deep it's going?
Yeah.
Should be.
Within
Mm-hmm.
I don't like
Question?
I don't have a depth on it right now. I could add, but added.
Okay, so, because I'm looking at in plan, well,
So this is 1'3". So if you just use that roughly as the
like
scale,
4 inches,
this is
5
like
inches?
4-ish.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, so looks like, as Commissioner Early was saying, your box around the outside looks, if you look at some other dimensions that you have there, like the 1'3", yeah, zoom into that, then you compare your wall depth to that, looks like it's about 4
The
4-ish.
whole wall is about 10 feet, so.
And then, but how thick is it? Because it looks like it's,
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you want to know how the depth of actually
yeah,
this is?
because
It's about 4 inches-ish.
And what is that pattern? Like, is the pattern recessed the full 4 inches? It's open, or is it an open?
It's not open. It's not open.
Okay, so how far does it step back off the face?
If we were to estimate, and we're going to estimate this to be 4 inches, I would probably say it's probably inlet like 2 inches,
Okay.
2.5.
Okay.
That's pure a guess on
Yeah,
my
yeah.
part.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no openings through, correct? I mean, it's not a true grill.
That's correct.
It's just sort of decorative and deep enough maybe to cast a shadow?
Enough to provide the depth that we were hoping to achieve.
Okay, okay, thank you.
That's the detail that's missing because that section is inaccurate. You know, if it truly was cut where the graphic shows it was cut, then the box on number 2 would show the
The depth
Jog-
of
the
the
jogging in
the
and
jogging of the element, so you could get a sense of how deep it was.
And just along the lines of, remind me, this is or is not necessary to actually have this jogging in and out or grill at all? Is it just purely decorative?
It's purely decorative. We could leave it, I'm, the last time we talked about it just being a flat face panel as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly fine.
It does not interfere with the...
No, not at all.
Question about the equipment. You see 6 antenna.
Correct.
How big are the antenna?
We're looking at, I'm assuming it's going to be a 6-foot antenna. It's not described here, but it's either going to be a 4-foot or a 6-foot
Right,
antenna.
so you can go back to that detail. I mean, you're flipping around, so it's hard. So you can stay here.
Sure. Yeah.
On box number 1, which is the elevation with the equipment mounted at the bottom of it, is this antenna mounted on the pole that is represented there, and the antenna is dotted? So is it actually extending above that pole and into this box?
Yeah, the antennas are actually going to be here where the inlets are. The equipment down below are just our radios.
All right. So I guess to follow up on that, this pole would be taller in the antenna. You can't see what I'm drawing on.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Which pole are we referring to? This one here?
So, no, see the.
Go inboard of that, the gray
See the
pole.
rack
Yeah.
there? Right there, there's a pole with a dotted box on it.
Let me just zoom in.
Here,
Oh, okay.
let me turn it.
Oh.
So this pole here, is this pole actually what the antenna is mounted on?
No, so the antennas are going to be mounted to the frame, so there's going to be a frame that's loaded up on here. So it's going to, I don't
It's
think
sort of
it
like
shows it.
a shelf up high
Yeah.
that goes around, like a catwalk that goes around the inside.
Because it appears that antenna is mounted on a pole.
Yeah.
That is mounted on the base, and that pole extends up and the antenna is on it. What I'm trying to get to is, does this enclosure have to be that tall?
Well, the taller we go, the more that we're trying to achieve as far
The
as.
taller the antenna goes.
Yes, and so basically the reason why we have the height where we have it now is in order for us to be able to shoot over the roof.
Yeah.
It allows us to get a clear shot without causing any shadowing to the frequency. That's what we're going for.
All right. It would be helpful on your drawing if you actually dotted in how tall the
Where the
antenna.
antenna lives.
Yeah, where they are in the box.
I see. Well, if we look at the elevation, I think it kind of shows it a little bit closer, I guess not.
It doesn't show anything about the equipment. It's like the equipment is a mystery and the box is ugly. That's a comment.
All right, other questions?
I have a question. These antennas are serving customers within a block, 2 blocks, a mile?
Several miles.
So they're quite a ways away. The customers are quite a ways away.
You driving down the
From, yes.
Well, I'm just wondering.
It's going to be shooting up
Your
and down the
concern is
street.
getting across the top of the existing parapet. And if your customers are at the freeway or beyond, but not this side of the freeway, then the elevation rise for your customers is such that the existing building parapet may not be a problem. Is that, I'm just trying to find a way to reduce the height of this, and that's a question I have. If the customers were a long ways away, then line of sight is different than if the customers are right below you.
Yeah, so how would that affect it? And so maybe something along the lines of how would it affect it if it was a couple feet lower? Like 3 feet lower?
Yeah, sure.
Like, would that drastically reduce the efficiency and effectiveness of this? And actually, well, part of my follow-up question to that is, where can the antennas, where can they live? Can they live like right at the gutter line of the roof? Or do they have to have a certain space off the top of the roof? Or where do they, can they fit all the way up and even partly underneath that clay roof? Or where does it stop working?
It wouldn't be able to live where the clay roof is because the clay is going to end up causing the shadowing of the antenna. So everything that's going to be built with the fiberglass polymer is where the antennas can live.
Okay.
And so to answer Commissioner Ledvick's question is that we do want to be able to shoot and hit the freeway. That's one of the main points of where the azimuths are pointing. And we also want to go up and down the street of Cabrillo Boulevard because that's kind of where most of the people are going to be. People are at the beach and they're going to need cell phone service. And those are kind of our main target areas. And so the higher we go, the further out we could shoot.
I suppose part of the challenge is we don't have the engineering matrix that determine the best location of the antenna so that we can understand, does the structure need to be that tall or not that tall? That's what's not provided. It's also not in our purview because the only thing we're looking at is the architecture of this tower and not the electronics.
But, yeah, I think to rephrase the question, what is the minimum height of the tower? What is the minimum height the tower can be in order to achieve what you're saying you want to accomplish with this footprint? So is this the minimum?
This is
height?
going to be the minimum that
So
we
it
can
can't
go.
get any shorter without restraining your ability for your footprint that you're trying to cover?
That's correct. It's not. We're not going to go ahead and exceed the height of what's necessary in order just to have the height. That's not the point of the project.
Because you have an engineering matrix that tells you where to place the antenna.
Yeah, there are RF engineers who have studied the location as well as the azimuths and the depth of the roof.
Okay. So,
Chair Grumby?
yeah, Commissioner Ansberg.
So I have a question. This grill.
Sure.
Let's call it a grill. It's not a grill. It's a recessed texture. It's a recessed.
Yes, that's correct.
It's a design that's a texture that looks sort of like a grill, and it's just a recessed element. It's designed to just be recessed 2 inches or something into the wall.
Correct.
So it creates a shadow line, and that was done. This is the question that the commission asked you to add something like that.
It was either this or to
To-
leave it flat.
Okay, and so you came back with this idea to give it a bit of some poetry, let's call it.
Sure. Pizzazz, if you will.
So, yeah, so that was the idea. This was your first attempt at doing something like that.
That is correct.
To add a shadow line and a texture that might look like a grill to the untrained eye down below from far away, right?
That was the intent, yes.
Yeah, but it could be, and it seems that maybe it's effective, but perhaps maybe fewer of them. You know, maybe if there were, could there be?
Of course.
Fewer, I have to ask a question.
Oh, sorry.
Could there be fewer of them and maybe larger, fewer of them so that so that it read more powerfully to look like a grill? Maybe it could be simplified, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual design of the quote-unquote grill, that could be changed without a problem.
And it could be lowered down too. It doesn't have to be up so high. It could be lowered down. It could be simplified. It
I
could
can
be
get rid of like
maybe
the
instead of
diamond and
however many
triangle
there are,
things as
what,
well.
3, 6, 8 of them or something, 7 of them. So maybe they could be, you could redesign it a little bit and make it
Absolutely.
something like that, yes?
Yes, it could absolutely be redesigned. It could be removed.
That question.
Yeah.
All right,
I can get
okay.
rid of these
Commissioner
triangle
Lenvick?
diamond things. as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering that
So
question.
Each of these 6 antenna elements are 10 foot tall?
No, sir, they are 6 feet tall.
So you have a element above the, I can't remember what that is.
Dash line indicates existing
You
parapet.
have a structure above the parapet which is 10 feet tall to the bottom of your corbelling for an antenna which is 6 foot tall.
I'm not understanding the question, I'm sorry.
Well, I see here that you have a 16-foot, 11-inch to the bottom of the corbelling,
Yes,
and you're 6 foot off the roof deck to the, 5'9" to the
Existing parapet,
existing parapet.
Mhm.
So that means that you've got
10
10
feet of
foot.
wall space.
10 feet of wall space.
So that you're both looking at the same.
Yeah.
Let's try.
And so
I
that-
see what you're saying.
you
So
got
your
10 feet.
question's in regards to this space here.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
10 foot of wall space for an antenna which is
6 feet.
6 feet tall.
Correct.
And so what is the purpose of that? And I think I understand
You know where we're trying to go.
Yeah, but I think his response is probably going to be that it lives up here in the top. The 6-foot antenna lives high because that's where it's getting its angle from. It is not really using that.
There also needs to be some separation between the RUs and the equipment below and the antennas above to reduce interference.
So this graphic would really be much more powerful if you had the antenna dotted in so that we understood and your argument was believable, that this box covering these antenna had to be so big because X, Y, Z. We don't see the antenna. So, Commissioner Limvick's quick math, it has a wall surface of 10 feet with a 6-foot antenna in it. So either the antenna is the top of the antenna is at the very top and comes down and there's 4 foot of space between the antenna and the equipment, or there's something else going on. But because your graphic doesn't tell us that, it's hard for us to understand
Right.
why this device is so tall.
Right?
Correct.
Correct.
Question
I
mark?
have-
Question mark.
I have another question.
Okay.
I couldn't upload all the drawings. Are there drawings in here which will satisfy the building department's concern about this element up in the air supporting these antennas being seismically safe?
Yeah, we're gonna have a structural analysis performed.
But you don't have it now.
It's not necessary for the zoning submittal.
It's true. It's true.
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll now shift into comments. So I think, well, actually, one last question. Did you bring a precedence of like what you looked at and saw that you were looking at emulating here for these moldings and for the moldings and for?
I have photos, I didn't know I needed to prepare them for this.
Okay.
My apologies.
No worries. And it looks like you're quoting definitely from our language, but it's oftentimes helpful in the discussion to see what you were looking at and see where you're translating it, because it could make for easier comments of like, do this piece here, but not that piece, or that kind of thing. Okay, okay, so now so let's go into comments and let's just generally discuss it. Actually, I have one more question. Can you, so that back plane that jogs 2 inches or 3 inches or whatever it jogs back, is there a way of making that black, like blacking out, or is it just going to come off of whatever the fiberglass material is? Or is there a way of making it permanently so that you don't have to touch it up?
The void is black?
Yeah, so where you're setting it back 2 inches or 3 inches.
The back part of it
the
would be
back
painted
part
black.
of that.
Yeah, that could be painted black.
And then it would at least somewhat look more like a grill or perforation. Yeah.
Or pink or green
or go one color with it. Stripes. No. Okay, so that was one question, is just whether that's even possible with this material as a long-term solution.
Definitely possible.
Okay. Okay, so now let's go into comments. I guess it could be a question too, but do you have a detail of your clay, or the clay tile condition that shows how you're getting it to look the way you want it to look, or the way it should? Do you have
Of the Spanish tile?
Yeah.
Yeah, an eave detail.
I don't think I have it here.
Okay, I didn't notice it.
It's not about architecture, it's about electronics.
Okay, and actually you had a structural detail there.
I think it was the mount.
Okay.
For the mount inside.
It wasn't, okay, that was for inside.
Yeah, this.
Okay, no, the one up in, what about 5? Is that at least?
No, this is the pole.
Oh, got it, okay. Okay, never mind. All right, so let's go into comments, and maybe we just have it sort of as a discussion as to sort of what we're seeing and what may be able to work, and then what we're comfortable with, and then also what you're hearing, what we're saying, then maybe your reaction to that in terms of, in terms of where we can go from here, because you also have a 90-day timeline. Yeah, Commissioner Drew?
I have a question first. So I'm assuming that grill pattern is on all 4 sides of the.
That is correct.
So may I go into comments?
Commissioner Butler also had that same question.
Did you already ask
Yeah.
that question?
I think it's on the elevations it shows.
Okay. So in terms of the grill, I'd like to see the vertical elements darker, or deeper, I should say. And I think that you don't need to be quite so fancy with the decorations above and below. I'm totally taking the wind out of
Yeah, you're stealing from
my neighbor's sails,
Commissioner
because
Ensberg's.
you drew I was just watching her draw something better looking than that. So that's.
What'd you draw?
I'm curious.
It's a comment, you can't share it.
No, I don't get
Oh, you're on site, yeah, okay, yeah. Never
That's
mind.
right.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Don't keep
yeah.
the sketch to yourself.
Only questions.
I could share it.
Does it look something like this?
Well, somewhat,
Okay.
but much better, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Those are my comments. I think the decorations above, those extrusions out of the wall, I think that they would be a shadow. They're what, maybe that deep?
I would estimate to be that deep.
It's kind of important because the depth will increase the shadow pattern. And I think
sure.
that would make it a little more lively, but I think simplification of the vertical elements, maybe even having, there's 7 now, I think if you had maybe 6 or 5, and then both the decorations above and below, I would simplify maybe just to 1 line. Those are my
Oh,
comments.
let me ask you one other question. I can't remember, maybe we asked this last time, but can they actually be openings straight through?
I actually addressed that with Dish, and the problem with leaving them actually open would be it would open it up to the elements like birds and birds nestings and things like that.
But the bottom's already open, so I don't know how logical that is.
Oh, that's true.
I have a couple of comments. I believe that the corbels don't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I look at this the way Commissioner Ensberg often looks at projects, keep it simple. And I think if you took the corbels off and did a molding that was more OG curved, reentrant curve for what is now a flat molding above the corbel, I think that would be sufficient. It would keep the structure simple. That's my number one comment. The second comment is I believe that the grill pattern does not need the upper element, and I believe you can get by with one or two fewer verticals, thereby increasing the width of the plaster wall on the corners. Those are my two comments that I think would make this better and less expensive.
Just give me one moment.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I would strongly support my colleague commissioner's comments on that. I think when you look at the design of the building, I don't see these elements existing anywhere else on the building. Is that correct?
I was actually just about to pull that up on Google Earth, if I may.
I mean, I don't, as a design concept, I don't know that this reflects what's already there elsewhere, like, to my memory. So I think back to his comment about simplify it. I don't know that you need a pattern on the side of the building, but it does add some sense of something. So, again, I would suggest simplifying it. You don't need to over-design it, overbuild it. The height is a concern. It sounds to me like, if I understand, the height is where it is. So if we can't adjust the height, all the more reason to simplify the design.
Are you looking for an image of the outside?
Yeah, I am.
Isn't there one in the upper right there where it says all images? Are you looking for the tower?
I wanted to get a street view.
Oh, okay.
Because
The existing tower
Google
has
Map
that
might have a
modulation to it.
street view.
I'm trying to find this thing on here.
You might have to, you're in Bing, so you might have to navigate to Google.
Oh, got it.
Competing browsers.
That'll do it.
How does everyone feel about the sort of blind grill look, which is what this is? It sort of is an infilled grill versus an open grill with even doing like a mesh or something to keep animals out, or whatever. But something that makes it actually the full, for whatever 4-inch thickness, open through. So it's. I'm a little worried of how skinny that depth is, and if it's only a tiny bit, it doesn't.
So this is kind of where our design was inspired by. And so it's this. This is kind of what we were shooting for as far as like the arches go and the, I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's the AT&T facility?
This is not the AT&T. This is an existing part of the hotel as it sits now.
Can you look at that from like maybe further back or a different? I want to see what's right below it. Probably a lot of plaster.
Yeah.
Well, it's
a little tough to
a
see.
lot of justification
It's
of
tough
what
to
he's
see.
doing.
Yeah, so like I said, this was the inspiration behind of what we're doing here. Obviously, it's going to be it's taller, but this is kind of what we were bearing on. And it's already part of the hotel anyway.
Yeah.
I could retract my comments, I suppose.
Well, I think that part of it is you're pushing one pattern very tight to another very complex thing, and that tower, I bet if you saw it from further back, it has at least a decent amount of plaster below it. So if the dentals don't seem, or corbels or whatever they are, yeah, there we go. So now zoom into that tower. Yeah, so you can see it has
There's
a decent.
nothing else up there.
Yeah, it's just sort of plaster wall and then those crenellations going around.
Sure.
So it is simpler. This is packing in a lot of detail. Well, I guess that also brings up the other question for the blind grills. Is it better just to even go blank wall? I mean,
I think so.
the question is like, what is this big tower thing? And if it's a giant chimney, then it would have chimney openings, but it's not a giant chimney. It's bigger than even a regular chimney. So now maybe it's the De La Guerra Plaza above Casa de la Guerra that where he stored his treasury of stuff, and there's no doors or windows because you don't want people stealing stuff. So maybe it's Jose de la Guerra's lost tower. So maybe it just is a big blank.
Yeah. I think you're right. Why not just emulate what's already there?
That's fine.
I mean, I appreciate that you did that, and I
Yeah.
now understand the correlation between the design, which is great, yeah, get rid of the pattern, emulate what's in the other building tower, and be done with it. And it looks integrated, and it looks part of the building. It's, the last thing you want is it to be more observable, more apparent, more stand out, right? So just emulate what's already there. Is there any reason from a design and construction standpoint you couldn't just
No,
do
of
that?
course not.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Anyway.
Leaving it flat.
All right, is that how everyone's feeling, going simple?
Well, I don't know.
Simpler?
My comments are generally, I don't like these things. Um, You know, a fiberglass element pretending to be plaster is like Ruskin's nightmare. You know, sunlight hitting fiberglass over time is much different than sunlight hitting plaster over time. And give this a few years, if maintenance is not a top priority, this thing is going to look terrible. So that's my general comment. You know, our experience on these things with other buildings is that the color fades in such a way that is inconsistent with the plaster that's next to it, and so it stands out. So there's that. Architecturally, my problem is that the proportions just seem to be awkward. It's too tall and too narrow and too heavy on the top. And, you know, if the metrics for the visibility of the antenna are driving this thing to be this way, then we don't have a whole lot of say in it, almost, because telecommunication stuff is not regulated by anybody locally. So my feeling would be if it could just be stripped down and be as generic and as vanilla as possible so that it disappears and doesn't stand out with a roof, or, you know, would be the way I go. So at this moment, if there were a motion, I couldn't support it. It's just, something is wrong with it. And unfortunately, here we are down to the last day, and that's the way it is, so.
Let me throw out a potential, maybe definable, so one of the other issues that I'm struggling with is there's no eave detail, right? Which really does make a huge difference in terms of whether things can be done right or not, or even close to right. So typically that would be that's an essential part of the design review, and also obviously showing the depth of it, but that can be called out at least verbally, but an eave detail can't be as easily called out to be done well. So one potential solution that I see I want to throw out is, what if the roof actually went to same slope but plaster, or the same slope and plaster? It can probably come down a foot in that case, because now you no longer have the tile that you're going up against, and you actually gain a little bit of space there. And it can just be a low slope that you don't really see, and because it doesn't have a clay tile roof edge sticking out, it just kind of visually goes away.
That makes some sense, because that actually mimics the tower that's on the opposite side of the property, where there's a broader tower and then a smaller element, and it's a conical roof on it with no eave detail. I think that would be much more successful for this one, because you lose all of that modulation around, whatever you want to call it. There's no eave detail. It's just simply a conical roof that's plastered.
How do others feel about that?
That's a better, I do have, who is responsible for maintenance of the tower itself?
Dish Wireless would be
So
responsible.
Dish is responsible for what we're seeing today on a maintenance basis?
That is correct.
Okay, not the hotel?
Not the hotel.
I'm generally concur with the comments and is supportive of the move to simplify it. I just want to express at this point some real frustration with the drawings, because they're missing crucial information, and that has complicated this discussion. And I make that comment in the context of what I perceive as Dish, which is a large national corporation, kind of not paying any attention to a design review at a local level. And I find that very frustrating because this is a design review board in essence, and we're not getting the kinds of information that we need. So I concur with the comments of my fellow commissioners about simplification of this, and but I'm also very frustrated.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask, and I have similar frustration because we do have our what is typically expected for final review are those details that are very clear about what depth of walls are, what the eve condition is, all those things are and even material board, clay tile roof, we should have a spec. Gutter, if there is one, we should have a spec. So it's not there in terms of the full proper set for final. So I guess my question to you would be, for Dish's perspective, this has a 90-day timeline. Would you prefer a decision right now, and I don't know where that'll go, or would you be up for some pretty decently clear direction as to what we would need to see for next time?
How soon would the next hearing be?
It's up to you.
Is 2 weeks is our?
We are open. If the applicant can submit revised drawings by Monday, we can get you on in 2 weeks. If you need more time, we can get you on in 4 weeks. If you agree to an adjusted timeline, we can get you on whenever you submit new drawings.
I'll provide more detailed drawings.
Okay. All right. So I think in that case, we can give you some pretty clear.
So, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think for the record, you have to be clear that you're willing to extend it and not.
Yes, I'm willing to extend it in order to provide more detailed drawings.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And then when the chair is making the motion, if you could include that as one of your comments, that the applicant has agreed to adjusted timeline.
Okay,
That
yeah.
way we can include it in the record. Thank you so much.
Okay. So let me let's talk through what our direction could be for next time. So there seems like there's only a couple elements. One is the roof, one is the dentals and whether that shifts to something simpler, and then one is whether there's any pattern or whether we simplify the pattern or whether there's just no pattern at all for the tower. So those seems to be sort of the main items. So let's just talk it through for each of those.
So I would suggest for my fellow commissioners to consider that this be a simple square box with a conical roof, period. No grill, because the grill is not successful. It can't be successful in a 4-inch fiberglass panel. It will never look right. You could paint the back black or whatever, but it's still not going to look right. It solves the rafter tail, eave detail, clay tile roof on a fiberglass box problem because it goes away. And then it just simply is a 4-sided box with a conical roof.
By conical, you mean like a pyramid?
Yeah, pyramid. It could
Yeah.
be square. It doesn't need to be round. And then it's very simple. It's much cheaper to build. It's easier to maintain, I believe. And it will disappear in the landscape of roof details that are already busy. So that's what I'm suggesting we do. I think it's very clear for the applicant as to what that means. It's very clear for staff to be able to evaluate it when it comes back. So that's what I'm suggesting.
All right. Other thoughts?
Mr. Chair, would that include detailed drawings of where the antennas are going to go? I mean, we need
Yeah,
to see
I
the
think
whole.
we include that.
Yeah, I would suggest a section with greater clarity about the installation of equipment.
And what would the roof covering consist of?
I think it looks like plaster. We often have either conical or pyramid roofs that are either tiled or plastered, and it could be shorter. I think it could be almost 4 feet shorter.
Commissioner,
I agree with Mr. Wooley's concept of where this is going. I would be really cautious about a plaster sloped finish roof. And I believe that if there could be a flat tile roof, and that tile could be cream colored or beige or brown or whatever, but a flat tile roof material, glazed material that would stand up to the elements over time would be better than plaster.
I would agree with that, but I think we have to be clear, it's not actual plaster. It's fiberglass that looks like plaster, because the antenna has to be able to read through it.
Well, the roof would be actual Spanish tile. It wouldn't, it.
The roof could be whatever, what you're saying is if.
As long as the antenna's not shooting through
All right.
the actual material is gonna be what it is.
Okay.
It's only the elements where the antennas are
The
shooting.
side of the box.
Correct.
So let me ask you about a slight modification to it. And I do like the idea of at least something of a tile. And they can pick a color of the tile that is currently on the building or whatever. And a flat is even nice and simpler, and that's definitely within our tradition if we did a flat tile. It still seems, and with the tile, maybe we can find some examples where there is no cornice element of any sort, and I just mean even a step. But I do think that there should be something, even if it's just a flat
The tile's
step.
gonna have to come and terminate somehow.
Yeah, there'll be an edge. But if there is even just some sort of a step on at the top, I think we'll visually have an end to this little tower element. Yeah,
Just a little bump,
yeah,
right? Something to terminate the tile.
yeah. So with that minor modification, how does that?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
tile's better.
It's still simple.
Yeah, it is very, very simple, a lot simpler than this, and it also, so it'll be less expensive, and then also it will be a little lower. Okay, so I would say, assuming whatever this is, I don't, because we don't have that technical section or showing what or why where the equipment lives, and but as effective as it would have been here, whatever the new design is, lower it to get to this point. You know what I mean? So if you're
We're talking about removing all of this elements then, right?
Yeah.
These elements we're talking about and just going straight up and down box.
with one step. So I think the idea was something like one step out. So keep your top little flat step, super
Okay.
simple, and then have a flat tile roof. It's not the red clay tile that's mission and barreled, but it's just a flat tile. And you'll see some examples around town that have that on even on a low slope tower roof, where it's just literally whatever,
Finished,
3/8 inch tile.
I see.
And it's,
So we're trying to reduce the height basically from here up.
so then, yeah, so wherever your current antenna lives, keep it there and just drop, now that you're simplifying the roof, drop it to wherever, to the closest you can. So if you get a foot out of it, or 6 inches, or a 1.5 feet, whatever you get out of it from
I'm
this
gonna
design.
think that we could probably get rid of this 2 feet.
Okay,
Whatever
great.
this is,
I'm gonna
2
say
feet 10.
almost 4, because it's.
Oh, it's
10
this,
at the top
this,
and 1
yeah,
foot.
so that's almost 5.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying.
And if you even dropped 1 more foot, the strike of your roof could be at the bottom of here. Because if that's the top of the antenna, then we're good, right? 1611 to the break of the roof, and then whatever the slope is another, 2 feet?
So basically, as soon as you modify this, then whatever you can lower, this profile, whatever you can lower that roof to keep the antennas in the same spot, have the same effectiveness of whatever you have right now, engineering-wise, and just dropping the roof as much as will allow it to get to that point.
Understood.
Okay, and then a
And then
section.
find a color of tile that's on the building already.
Yeah, yeah, and then just match a color of tile on the building.
Okay, and we're talking about getting
Flat.
rid of all the
Yep.
inlets, we're
All
going
the-
flat.
Get rid of all that stuff.
All this
All the,
flare.
All the hoo-ha.
All the flare is
Not
gone.
gingerbread.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me try to summarize. Is that sounding good for everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so, here's the comments that then would need to be made into a motion for a 2-week, assuming that they're submitted, 2-week continuance, or do you want?
2 weeks brings us to what, a week after Thanksgiving?
Yep.
So your drawings are due on Monday,
That should work.
coming up.
Okay, and
Yeah, like 3
if you
days from now?
don't make it,
Yes.
then whenever you do make it, it'll get the meeting, so. All right, what are you doing this weekend?
Redrawing this detail.
I'm not going to draw anything.
All right. Okay, so here's the comments. So first, the commission thanks the applicant for their continued study and refinements to try to achieve what are the direction we've given. And the commission also recognizes that the applicant has agreed to adjust the 90-day timeline to take on this next round of changes. And so the design direction from the commission is to do the following: to eliminate the grill pattern, the main grill pattern on all four sides, to simplify the top cornice mold, so that is simply we'll say, 3-inch in depth, flat
fascia band?
Yeah, flat fascia band, yep. The one, we can keep it at the 1 foot, and then we'll just make it 3 inches out from the tower. And then for the roof to be same slope, but instead of 2-piece clay tile, to be a flat tile with finish to match an existing tile, and to show that as a image on your next drawings as well, as a spec. And for there to be a section through the tower showing the antenna equipment location or antenna location and equipment, and the tower profile. Let's see. And
On that drawing, number 1, I think it was, the antenna should be dotted in on that detail.
Oh, yeah.
So that
And then on detail 1, the elevation, to dash in the antenna on the elevation drawing as well. Okay. Did I miss anything? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So with that.
Since I suggested it, I'll make a motion to continue this item for 2 weeks with those comments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Under discussion, any further discussion? All right.
Just to, really quickly, I apologize. So I'm looking at the drawing and this elevation, so just to note where the antennas are. The antennas are gonna be right underneath that roof line. That's where the top of the antenna is. So if you wanna go back and kind of see where it is, the top of the antennas are gonna be up here. So if we were to reduce that roof line, per your guys' recommendation, it's only really gonna reduce it maybe about 1 foot.
That's all right.
Whatever we can
it
get.
is.
If that's,
Yeah.
if you guys are, okay.
Wherever the antennas are currently, and whatever tightening of that down can do. If it's a foot, it's a foot.
And I suppose if you work with your engineers and you can drop the antenna 6 inches, then you'll get 1.5 feet out of it.
Yeah, whatever you can.
That elevation you've shown
Yes, sir.
previous.
This one. Yeah, so the detail's not in the one that we've been looking at, but this is kind of what we're looking at
I
here.
understand that, but it's a lot of height above the top of the parapet for a 6-foot high antenna.
Yeah, 16
Oh.
feet.
Yeah, it's not just getting across the,
We're also preparing the tower for potential modifications as well. So not only is it might be 6 feet now, but eventually it could grow into an 8-foot antenna. So we want to be able to prepare ourselves for any future modifications without having to modify
part of
the
the story
entire
we
tower
get.
itself.
We'll be here.
Okay, so I think the general direction was to just look at how to get given whatever the current antenna design is, and assuming that that is what is as low as it can be reasonably, then to modify, to save that whatever little bit you can from the top. But you heard that as part of that motion. Okay, so are we good? Any other further discussion? All right, or questions? All right. Could we roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Abstain.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you in a couple
Awesome.
weeks.
Let me
Thank
ask
you.
you a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the name of the engineer or architect on the drawings?
Sorry?
Is the name of the architect or engineer there on the drawings?
All right, and I think we are adjourned.
We almost.